Welcome to Ana Dialogue. Today we are going to take a look to the 10 best reel-to-reel recorders ever made of all time. Are you ready to dive in? Let's go now. Okay guys, as you know, a few weeks ago I released a video called the 10 best cassette decks of all time. Here is a link if you're interested in that. Clearly, I also had to do one on reel-to-reel recorders because that is my logo. That is the best sounding medium for me, at least. So it is something that I deeply treasure and I love. Okay, now before taking a look at these 10 amazing decks and a short list at the end of honorable mentions, I do have to make a little bit of intro here, some coordinates. Okay, now first of all, as in that other video, I'm going to present one recorder per brand. Otherwise, it's going to be a list of Ampex, Studers, and things like that. But don't be mistaken, because these machines can absolutely compete with the Ampex and Studers that we are going to see. Absolutely. Please, okay? It's just to give a little more space to the other brands, but these, once again, are as good and sometimes even better. Just maybe they're missing some technology, maybe they're a little more hard to find, maybe a spec is a little down in respect to others, which in the community make them a little less appealing. But if you put the sound, if you put the transport, if you put everything on a correct level, I think these are perfectly imbalanced throughout. Okay, it's important to underline that what we are going to see are considered master recorders, okay? It's the recording machine at the end of the chain, at the end of the process, used to make a 2-track master, okay? For mastering. Because usually you have a multi-track machine before that, or a mixer. Perhaps you're doing it live on the fly, or just to have a couple of channels or things like that. And then hence afterwards you combine everything and you create your master with a dedicated machine. Very high quality machine. Now this is important. Also, we are evaluating the combination of the transport, all the technology that can be behind that. Very important. A lot of people don't even think about it, but it's fundamental. And the preamplifiers, okay? So the output sonics. Absolutely. Clearly all the different technical parts, the heads, the inputs, the features, but these two practically combined all together, the various features into big sections, which are the important criteria for evaluation. We are clearly going to observe the specs for 15 inch per second and 30 inch per second, okay? Most of these are capable of doing other speeds, but we don't have enough time, so we're going to focus on that. Okay, so I have my bunch of notes here. As you know, the format is I'm going to talk about the model mainly through its specs. It's the best way. Yes, the specs are not everything, as many people said in the other video. Absolutely, it's just something to guide us somehow. So mainly where it is made, the year, the different type of speeds, the frequency response, the signal to noise ratio, the wow and flutter, and the notes section where I will explain if it has special technology or features that are worth mentioning. Clearly, this is not going to cover every single aspect of every single deck, and more importantly, I am sure that all of you guys have a deck that it's not going to be on this list, and you're going to cry, you're going to be angry, you're going to hate me, or you're going to love me. In any case, it's a great opportunity to write what is your favorite deck or what you think it should be on this list in the comments. No problem. It's going to be helpful. Besides throwing a rock at me, it'll be helpful for the people watching this. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so let's start at our number 1 position. It's not a real top 10, okay? But let's say that we're going from if you consider the complete package, probably the best ones to the ones a little inferior, okay? Number one, at the top, I have to put the Ampex ATR 102. Yes, I mean, this is one of those recorders that has made history, that is still hugely widely adopted for those who are still using analog. It's one of the go-to machines. Clearly, we are mainly finding this in the USA environment, studios, etc., much less here in Europe. Remember, I'm Italian. I was born and raised here. My mother was American. Just a brief story there. So I mainly live and absorb the EU, let's say, situation. In any case, it's good to mention this because at the verdicts we have a couple of machines, and at the Ampex must be cited, especially the ATR 102, which is the evolution of the ATR 100. Absolutely, very close, very good. And as you know, my format, I also mentions the ones very close or that have to be mentioned because are almost as good or have incredible features, incredible sonics that have to be mentioned right next to the one in the top 10. So in this case, I have to mention the amazing MR70, okay, which is very famous for its preamplifiers. Those are probably the best preamplifiers out there of the past, okay? Let's not consider what modern technology is doing, but I think these vintage ones are just as good or probably even better. But since I haven't heard all of them, I can't say this, but the MR70 is just a jewel. But clearly also the 440 and the 350, 351. I mean, Ampex has a lot of machines. The little downside we could say, as I always say, is that these, except for the ATR 102, the transport is not that sophisticated as the Swiss machines, okay? But the preamplifiers are just something to die for. Okay, so the Ampex ATR 102 was made from 1976 to 1982 in the US. The speeds range from 3.75 all the way to 30 IPS, as you can imagine. The frequency response. Now, a lot of people criticize me that I did not mention the reference. Okay, here we are at plus minus 2 dB, like almost all, you guys. Usually that's it. That is the reference. In any case, plus minus 2 dB, 35 hertz, all the way to 28 kilohertz at 30 inch per second. Okay. Well, instead, if we go down at 15 inch per second, the frequency response goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Wow. Fantastic. Signal to noise ratio, even in this case, A-weighted. Through two track, clearly, 76 dB at 30 inch per second. While instead, at 15 inch per second, we have 74 dB. This is a lot, guys. A lot of dynamic range you have there. Wow. Wow and flutter, din peak weight, 0.03% at 30 inch per second or 0.04% 15 inch per second, or as you US guys, 0.04%. Okay, this is solid state, and I must say that they're all solid state, even though there are some mentions here and there that, as I said, are just as good or slightly inferior, but have to be mentioned. But I must admit that all of these are solid state. Why? Because they have more technology in that phase of their life, not because they're solid state. It's a coincidence. Not always. Okay, I wanted to mention this because it has a ferrite head. Strange. It's servo controlled, so the speed, the position, it's always checked and adjusted constantly. There's a direct drive capstan transport. There's no pinch roller. That is something very special and unique of the Ampex ATR. And clearly, as you can imagine, the tape tension and speed is constantly monitored by a servo relay. So the transport is fabulous. As I said, one of the few examples where preamps and transport are just top of the notch. And another great feature is that with just one screw, you could change the head block and say you want to do a mono recording if you have that head, or you want to do a different, I don't know, just a four, or even a 4-track if you want, things like that. I mean, you can change it on the fly. Very, very cool. So everything is fully modular, just like Studer. Let's proceed. Okay, our second position is crowned by Studer. And in particular, I wanted to put, a lot of people are probably going to hate me here, the A816. Now, immediately I want to say, for most people, the A820 is the best. And they're probably right, simply because that was distributed. And this one was restricted to a few selected situations, which I will explain in a sec. Okay? In any case, if we really want to choose the best one, the A816 has advanced control. It has advanced features that the 820 does not have, even though clearly we're very, very close. We have to also mention the C37, which is probably going to be, for the majority of people watching, the best of the best. Why? Because of its tube preamps. Just like the MR70, I forgot to say it's tube preamp, the MR70, even in the C37, the tube preamps are just something to die for, clearly. The rest, good, but not as good as these other machines, more modern machines. And that is why so many of us are adopting an external preamp, tape preamp. I did an entire video on this. If you want to know more, here is a link. You're also going to find the links in the video description. Okay, and clearly, probably the most famous deck of all time, I think, reasonably, the A80. Yes, guys, we have to mention that. The vast majority of the records you have at home, if we're speaking of Western music, is made on the Ampex and on the Studer, and it's more specifically the A80. Okay, but we are aiming at the best. So, the A816 was made in Switzerland. Sometimes they source parts in Germany, but the head is in Switzerland, okay? 1989 to 1996, so very late, and that is why we have such fantastic technology. And these were mainly conceived for the German state radio television, ARD. And that is why I was a little on the fence if putting the A820 or this one. But this time I really wanted to put the best of the best. Okay, speeds range, all of them, 375 to 30 IPS, frequency response plus minus 2 dB. We are with 40 Hz to 20 kilohertz at 30 IPS, so already inferior to the Ampex, for example, on paper at least. While instead at 15 IPS, we have 30 Hz to 20 kilohertz, okay? While the signal to noise ratio, A-Wade, 69 dB at 30 inch per second and 67 dB at 15 inch per second. Once again, Ampex ATR 102 wins here. On the paper, then everyone is going to have their favorite by the ear. While in Flutter, the DIN peak weight 0.04% at 15 inch per second. Okay, also in this case, as I said, a solid state, they have an amorphous head, so we're already starting to go into that 90s technology. If you want to know more about the amorphous tech, the amorphous type of alloy, I asked this at a Professor Gerlich from Waterloo University in an investigation on OCC copper cables I did recently. Here is a link, very interesting, and we also talk about amorphous copper alloy. Sorry. Okay, plus it has, even in this case, a servo-controlled tape transport, and the capstan is controlled by a quartz microprocessor. That is the step ahead compared to the A20. Spooling motor control with pulse width modulation. There is a digital control of the different operations, as you can imagine. It's one of the most sophisticated there. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want mechanic. A lot of people want simple electronics. This is the opposite. Okay, let's proceed. Our third position is covered by the machine that is probably most chosen by techs today. Okay? Meaning people that are putting out reissues, releases of tapes, or recording also tapes and making dubs for people, usually have this. After passing through Studers and Ampex, they finally land here because it's more easy, because it has lots of features, and I don't know, a lot of people say that it even sounds better. I can't speak for that because I never owned one. Like most of these, okay? As in contrast with the video on X, where I had an idea of practically all of them, almost all of them, in this case, clearly I have not explored all of these. So this goes a little bit by forums, reviews, journals, some experience of a few of these, obviously, about the brands, about specific models as well, fairs, techs that I've spoken with. I mean, a lot of info, okay? Not just a simple research on or ChatGPT or on Google. No. Okay, this is just to explain a little bit more the background of this. So what am I talking about? Position number 3, the Otari MTR15. Actually, there are several models. So you're going to have to go through them if you want to know which is good for you. But let's say the MTR15 as a base. Very close, very good is also the MTR10 and the MTR12, okay? We're talking about professional machines, you guys. Remember, you're not going to find consumer, prosumer, things like that. Studio machines, mastering machines. And this was made, I had a hard time to find the end of the production, but it should go from 1990 all the way up to 2017. So there are a lot of them out there, although on sale, not that many, because a lot of people are keeping them. Clearly, in Japan, Otari is Japanese. Speeds range from 375 all the way up to 30 IPS. Frequency response, plus minus 2 dB. 40 hertz all the way up to 28 kilohertz. Wow, at 30 inch per second. While instead at 15 inch per second, we have 30 hertz, 22 kilohertz. Very good. The signal-to-noise ratio, A-Wade, DIN model, 72 dB at 30 IPS, which is the same also at 15 IPS. Again, solid state. It has a permalloy head, the heads. It has a quartz phase locked loop cap stand control, meaning the motor, the drive of the tape. Fully servo DC motor controlled. Pulse with modulation, so there's also a digital side, and it can be full automatic if you want, or manual. You can switch, which is something very cool, very unique. Calibration, automatic calibration, meaning you put a tape and you have the optimal recording. Okay, everything is automatically set. Now we give this almost for granted with these fantastic cassette decks. But when we're talking about reel-to-reel, we're slightly shifted backwards usually to the 60s, 70s, 80s. But this wasn't present, automatic calibration. Only the last models had this. Okay? And it also had Dolby HX Pro. Wow. That's also another great reason. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, our number 4 position is covered by a machine that a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to scream it should be at the top. Especially for recording, I would say. But apart from that, the 4th position is covered by Nagra. And as you can imagine, by the Nagra T. Clearly, Nagra had various models, but mainly portable models, like the famous 4S, which is an excellent machine, which has also adapters that cost almost practically more than a machine now, that you can use big reels, the 10-inch reels and things like that. But it's more for a portable situation, okay? The Nagra T is at another level, as I said, especially for recording. And this was made from 1981 to 1994 in Switzerland. and the speeds go from 3 3/4 all the way to, or 375 is the same thing, all the way to 30 IPS. The frequency response plus minus 2 dB is 30 Hz to 20 kHz at 30 inch per second, and also at 15 inch per second. The signal to noise ratio, a Wade, 77.5 dB at 30 inch per second, and 73.5 / I don't know why I found this, 77.5 dB at 15 inch per second. Very high, okay? Very high. Even higher than the Ampex. Wow. While in Flutter, Wade peak, IEE ANSI, 0.025 at 30 IPS and 0.027 at 15 IPS. And this was just the first sheet of paper. What can we say? It's described actually as a transportable studio. So the concept of moving is always present, also with the Nagra T, which isn't that big actually. It is extremely sophisticated and prone, as you can imagine, to breakage because there's a lot of electronics. It has a twin capstan open loop system, a very delicate tape handling, fast copying mode at 30 inch per second, and was used a lot in the film industry. Okay, as we know, Nagra mainly sold its stuff for the cinematography making, for filmmaking, because of the great time code and all the features thought for the film industry. Okay, our fifth position is covered by something that I still own and is present in this room. A lot of people, I'm afraid I'm not going to agree on this, but once you've heard it in person, a little bit like Dual, I put in a cassette list, deck list. I had to put it. It's just amazing. It's just fantastic. It's so robust. It's so real world. The price is excellent compared to the other ones. It had to be here. What am I talking about? The Telefunken M15. Now, very close to the Telefunken M15A. Actually, someone prefers it. Or the M10. And we're starting to go even back where we have tube electronics. But also the future ones are very good. The sound a little less, but they have a lot of features and a lot of people like that. The M20 and the M21, where we have that cream look like the Otari, which I personally adore. Now, the Telefunken M15 was made between 1971 and 1977 in West Germany. The speeds range from, the features aren't that many, 7.5 to 15 IPS. You could have asked for a 30 IPS motor speed optional, okay? But it did not come by default. The frequency response here, the plus minus is 1.5 dB, so a little more restricted. And it goes from 60 Hertz, pretty high, to 20 kilohertz at 20 inch per second. See, there's also the spec for the 30 inch per second, while instead the 15 inch per second ranges from 30 Hertz to 16 kilohertz. Quite low, okay? Quite low compared to the others. Very bad. But the sound, and I'm talking solid state, is just heavenly. And I got this also because when I really didn't have money and I really had to make my choice on the Telefunken, my M15. Actually, I did a video on the M15. Here's the link if you're interested. And I did a real consultation. I spoke with dozens of people. I wanted to know what was the best sounding machine, excluding the 30, 40, 50K machines, okay? And they all said the Telefunken M15. A few said M15A, but no, the M15 was, for many, just the best in terms of sound. Obviously, you're missing some features, and even the specs are not fantastic, as we have seen. But that's the confirmation that specs are just here for giving an indication, okay? They're not the Bible. In any case, let's proceed. Okay, signal to noise ratio A Wade, 65 dB at 30 and also 15 inch per second. Not bad. While in Flutter, peak Wade, ICDIN, 0.03% at 15 inch per second. Okay, it has this amazing tape control, okay? Fantastic, with this little lever that according to the voltage, it moves faster or less faster. It is fantastic control. Amazing. I love it. Very cool. Clearly, also, the preamplifier is one of the main reasons to buy this baby, because they're just extremely good. I mean, I have an external preamplifier, very high quality, but the own solid-state preamps in the Telefunken, guys, are just something out of this world. Incredible. And you're going to find them mainly here in Europe, as you can imagine. One of the main reasons why, actually the main reason why, the M15 is considered, and I think they're right because I heard both, better than the 15A is that the components inside are discrete. While instead with the 15A, they started to use ICs, okay? And that changed the sound. Unfortunately, it did. Okay, the heads are very high quality. Butterfly. It has a brushless DC motor, quartz control capstan. And these, unfortunately, all the other ones I mentioned up until now, and practically even the ones after, have a double equalization, which I think is paramount. IEC and NAB, okay, for the different types of tapes. NAB is mainly US, making a macroscopic generalization, and IEC is mainly Europe, especially for going in the past. Today, they're almost always IEC, the standard. Unfortunately, here, the Telefunken M15 is usually IEC, because it was really meant for broadcast, for studios, for television, for, people who were recording and playing back their own stuff in Germany and things like that. So there are some machines that have a knob to select the equalization from IEC and NAB. Very rare. It is extremely heavy because it has this very sturdy die cast frame that weighs almost 118 pounds, 53 kilograms. Wow. Plus, you're also missing the VU meters, something I can't stand. Yes, I mean, you can buy the trolleys. A lot of versions had the machine below with the trolley, clearly with the VU meters. But usually you're going to find just the machine, the standalone machine. So that's missing, I think, sometimes. But the Sonics compense. The Sonics make you forget all the rest of what is missing. Let's proceed. Our sixth position is covered by one of those machines that a lot of people think, declare, state that it is the true best of all, okay? The top of the tops. What am I talking about? The Sony APR 5000 series, and more specifically, the ones where you are interested, the 2-track, etc., stereo, etc., is the 5003. The Sony APR 5003 was made from 1985 to 1989 in Japan. And this has 7.5 all the way up to 30 inch per second speeds. The frequency response between plus 0.75 dB and minus 3 dB, very strange, is 50 Hz to 28 kilohertz at 30 inch per second. While instead, if we consider plus 0.75 dB minus 2 dB, at 15 inch per second, we have 30 Hertz all the way up to 24 kilohertz. Very good, absolutely. Signal to noise ratio, A Wade, is 70 dB at 30 inch per second and 67 dB at 15 inch per second. Absolutely fantastic. While in Flutter, DIN Wade, DIN, 0.025% at 30 inch per second and 0.035 at 15 inch per second. Now here we have the state-of-the-art transport, and it has this very strange angle to the heads, how it's built. The transport, they say it was mainly used for editing, but it also reduced some types of friction, and they think that was one of the optimal solutions. It's very strange, and you recognize it immediately from that. It has a full electronic tape calibration, as you can imagine, a very high torque DC spooling motor and DC capstan motor. Oh, I forgot to say the angled heads also were very useful in order to swap the different types if you needed to. And the transport was controlled by a microprocessor of 16 bits. Wow, like the Studer, see above. Very, very cool. Let's proceed. Okay, our 7th position is not considered one of the best by a restricted number of people, I would say. But it does represent the sound of the 60s. And a lot of people who did audiophile records do think this is an incredible machine. But here, a lot of people are not going to agree with me. What am I talking about? The Scully 280. Now, the Scully is a US machine made from 1965 to 1970. And this was adopted. There are famous photographs by, as you can imagine, a wealth of people. Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, I mean, you name them. The speeds range from 3 3/4 all the way to 15 inch per second. You could have 30 IPS optional. The frequency response plus minus 2 dB, 35 Hz all the way up to 18 kHz at 15 inch per second. Signal to noise ratio, a WAID, 70 dB at 15 inch per second. While in flutter, RMS WAID, 0.08% at 15 inch per second. Now, here we have excellent preamps. They're so good, in fact, that a lot of people, just like the MR70 or the other Ampex, they convert them to use them as microphone preamplifiers. Fantastic sound. It has great calibration controls, a DC capstan servo drive with variable pitch control. The tape tension control in the Model B, the 280B, has this special tape tension control. And this was the favorite, for example, the one I was anticipating, Mr. Sugano of Audiolab Record. And he made incredible recordings with this machine. If you want to know more about those recordings, here is a link. Check it out. Of Audiolab Record. Okay, let's proceed to our next model. Okay, our 8th position is covered by a machine that maybe is not supposed to be here because I did not find that much information. But according to many, it is very, very good. There are not that many models out there, but I had to put it. What am I talking about? The Stellavox TD9. This was made from 1984 to 1989 in Switzerland, and it ranges from 3 3/4 to 30 IPS. I have no idea of the frequency response because every manual had the specs of that specific machine. So there isn't one reference. At least I did not find it. If you have them, please write me, send them, and I'll put them in a pinned comment or also in the video description here below. Same for the signal to noise ratio, same for the WAV flutter, unfortunately. But here we are in front of the state-of-the-art transport. They were very famous, like Nagra, for their portable machines, but when they put all together, probably because they had to optimize certain solutions for space and portability, just like Nagra, they made amazing stuff. It has an automatic calibration. There was also the possibility to use it with 35 and 16 millimeter film. Fantastic. Easy to transport as well, and actually there is you probably know the online EU store called Sepea, which has a wealth of incredible stuff on their website. They sell also master tapes, refurbished machines, and they started to make a special version of the Stellavox. They call it the Pro TD9, and they're selling it for a modest amount of 36,000 euros. But I do understand in this case that it is one of the best machines ever made. There are very few, and they have invested a lot to bring specs even higher. Okay, let's proceed now to our next model. Our next model, maybe it's going to come as a surprise for someone, is a Technics. The RS 1800. Very rare. The big brother of the famous 1500, but that's consumer. This was a pro deck. It was made from 1978 to 1986 in Japan. It went from 7.5 to 30 IPS. The frequency response, plus minus 2 dB, 30 Hz to 22 kHz with 15 inch per second. While instead at 30 inch per second, it ranged from 40 Hz to 25 kHz. And I wanted also to mention the 7.5 frequency response. Very, very good, from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Wow. At 7.5, wow. Signal to noise ratio weight is 62 dB at 15 inch per second and 76 dB at 30 inch per second. Very good. While in flutter, RMS weight 0.015% at 15 inch per second and 0.010% at 30 inch per second. It has 3 motors, direct drive system, the whole thing. One is for a quartz phase lock DC brushless for the capstan, and 2 are for the tape tensile, the transport in general. Fantastic. Direct drive, pure direct drive bliss. There is a manual or fully automatic calibration, as we have said, quite rare. And it has a high quality separate preamplifier. At the base, you can see it is separate. It also has a feature of switching between 2 types of playback heads if you want to put a 4-track, for example, not only a 2-track. And also in this case, we have the main head was a butterfly head. Very nice. Let's proceed. Okay, our last position, our 10th deck, is almost an homage. To whom? To Tim De Paravicini. So you already know that I'm going to mention the Denon DH701F, the studio version of several models that Denon made. And this is a special jewel that Tim De Paravicini brought up to fame. Absolutely. He heavily modified the machine. Nevertheless, how the machine was conceived was very good in the transport and very good in the preamplifiers, as you can imagine. And this was made from 1976 to 1981 in Japan, ranging from 7.5 to 15 inch per second. Not 30 inch per second. So already here you see a difference with the other ones. The frequency response plus minus 2 dB is 30 Hz to 30 kHz. Wow, very high up. At 15 inch per second. Very, very high. Wow. The signal to noise ratio, and here there is a specification, the GISA correction is at 66 dB. Always 15 inch per second. While in flutter, RMS weight 0.02% at 15 inch per second. This is a direct drive with 2 capstans, and it has electronic tension servo for the feed and take-up of the reels. And as I said, an extremely high quality preamplifier. Okay, guys, we've reached the end, but I do wanted to signal a few other models that have to be mentioned. Let's say the honorable mentions that I said at the beginning of this video. And one above all is something that was signaled by one of my friends in Techs, by Giorgio Foschi. This amazing, go and find it. It's barely known, but the features are incredible. The Soundcraft Magnetics S20. I could not put it here because there are so few around. I mean, it's practically a prototype almost. So not that many, very few. Also in this list, the honor list, we could call it. It's the Mechlaber STM 800. Sorry if I'm butchering a few of these names. The Lyric TR55, as well as the Fostix E2. And the MCI JH110. Now these are right up there, okay guys? Right up there. In some cases, we could swap them, actually, especially the last 3 of the list. I also had to do just a small little mention of consumer-type recorders, but their fame and their quality are so raving that I had to mention. Clearly, the Revox, and more specifically, not the always present B77, but the C270, which has much more features, much more close to a studio grade. The Crown machines, Crown recorders, wow. The CX822, but also the Philips, Dutch Philips 94520, not the 22. That's the 22. That's the 4-track. Sounds amazing. There's also the 20 that a lot of people in the EU were using that in the 70s. Actually, no, in the 80s mainly. Also the Akai, the GX747, which also had DBX. It's a great machine, and a lot of people are going to cry and shout that this had to be in the number 10, but it was very prone to breaking, and it's not considered, after all, the sound is not considered that good as a studio-grade mastering machine, unfortunately. A lot of features, very cool to look also, very nice. And also the Tandberg TD20E is just raving. Ultimately, usually a lot of people now are mainly going to buy those, or the Otaris, the 5050. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video of the real hi-fi. Please leave your comments, and hope to see you soon. Remember, music, especially today, is born analog. Bye. Hey there, if you are enjoying my content, please consider to subscribe. It's free, and it will help the channel tremendously. Also, don't forget to explore my prior videos. There's something for everyone. Welcome to the audiophile community.